Oh, look at that. I did forget, didn't I? I know I forget something, but guess what, folks? Good morning, baby. It's the Doug Rising Show. Well, the Doug Rising Show. Well, the Doug Rising Show. And I'm Doug Rice. Oh yeah, man. Yeah, every time I think about it, I see it. I envision the horns. Good morning. Doug Rice, don't drop your phones. Don't drop your devices. Welcome to the Doug Rices. All right, how you doing? How is it going? 7 o'clock, 7:01. The 22nd of September. We're almost done. Yeah, I heard about it. I heard about 20, 23, 9, 23, 20. I mean, what? What you gonna do? I mean, caucasity, that's what I call it. The white madness has just gripped the entire world. They are on the brink of their own destruction. They're telegraphing that they're going to kill each other, and they just want to prepare. You know, I hear you. I'm not scared. Are you scared? I'm not scared. I'm not worried. I'm not concerned. This is all they're doing. This is all their shit. None of what's going on has anything to do with Negroes who are conscious that they are just trapped within the confines of this place. And I'm going to tell you, I had a good discussion with Brother Morial this morning, Brother Armstrong. And if you refer his YouTube channel, very, very informative. We talked about whether or not Negroes were here already, and if they were, was there bait and switch? How many could they get? I don't care. We're here. I don't care. They did what they did. We got pictures. You know, they castrated us. They burned us. They did the things that they did, and it seems now they're coming unglued. They are coming unglued. So, what are we doing today? And I do appreciate all of you showing up, no matter the number. And let me tell you this, folks. I'm going to say this unequivocally. I know that my topics are not popular. I don't give a damn. I know that so many Negroes are timid and shy about exposing this kind of subject, the connection between colorism and white supremacy. I know that talking about these folks makes you somewhat uncomfortable. So many of you are uncomfortable speaking against them. Let me tell you something, folks. Truth is truth. It's not CRT. It's just the facts to me. I don't know. And that's the reason I do this show. And I appreciate you showing up. I appreciate your presence. Now, you know, we are sponsored by Twidware, twidware.com. Brother that has been in business for 13 years. And if you saw my 5-minute intro, which is a 5-minute intro I do for the entire show every day, just to get people here and just to make sure that they see who's sponsoring us. This gentleman's worked on, I think, 15 years on a brand that is provided by Negroes, and a woke Negro at that. That is Twidware. Twidware.com. Use the promo code TDRS if you go to twidware.com if you want some really cool and very high quality material in your athletic gear. You got boxing, you got everything there. And again, twidware.com. That's what I do. All right, so thanks again for you guys showing up for the show. This is the Doug Rice Show, running long and strong, 7 a.m. Monday through Friday, Sunday at noon. And that day can come none too soon. So yesterday, the connection between colorism and white supremacy. Colorism as a tool of white supremacy in the contemporary age in the United States and Puerto Rico. Now, this is a senior thesis for Miss Bell attending Fordham Research Commons, Fordham University, if you will, Fordham Research Commons. And this was just a few months ago, though, folks. This was in May of this year. And so we have a very good insight, and let's hear what we hear. Now, if you do like what you are hearing now, if you don't mind, and if you can somehow, use the links below, preferably for the Doug Rice Show. The Cash App will do best, because none of the rest we put to the test. Welcome to Trina Antoine Anderson. If you are here, Antoine works. Antoine monitors the masses. Okay, it's a tedious job of commitment, and dear God, don't get in his way. Okay, and if he tell you to do something, do what he say. That's Antoine and my manager. Hey Antoine, how you doing? And of course, Trina, the moderator extraordinaire and producer of the Doug Rice Show, who found this information so we could put it before the Negro Nation. And thank you to Trina. This is fascinating. Now, I don't know how long this is going to be. I don't know if I'm going to get through this. The entire, connection needs to be made. And you guys can tell me if you want to have a part 3. If not, there's a lot more progress that we can place. All right. So we started and ended up on page 12. So I'm going to go to page 12. Boom. I'm on page 12. Now, the term colorism, as it refers to white supremacy, as we've defined it yesterday, apparently points to the more subtle ways of enforcing white supremacy upon the populace, and in some cases, the unsuspecting populace involved in the racial inequality assists in the white supremacy being subtly put about through colorism, if you can follow that math. And so we're going to continue the show. We're going to talk about the existing literature surrounding colorism, and we're going to continue how this peaks out. And for those of you that find this interesting, I welcome you. For those of you that don't, have a good morning. All right, here we go. And we're going to start, I would say here, one of the most heavily cited sources surrounding colorism is the article, The Persistent Problem of Colorism, Skin Tone, Status, and Inequality by Margaret Hunter. In her article, Hunter discusses how racial discrimination operates on 2 levels, race and color. She discusses the difference between racism and colorism, and that colorism determines the level of discrimination someone of a particular racial group faces. To further the explanation, this concept, she used the example of African Americans by saying that all African Americans experience some form of discrimination, but their skin tone determines the extent to which they are discriminated against. Very, very interesting. Hunter discussed modern day colorism and argued that it continues to exist because of white racism. That is just established. She is one of the most referenced researchers on the topic of colorism, and her work has been used by many others in their attempts to expand the existing literature on this topic. And the existing literature surrounding colorism consistently speaks to the disparities of opportunities. Now, I need you to focus on that. The existing literature surrounding colorism consistently speaks to the disparities of opportunities. Scholars conclude that lighter-skinned individuals earn more money, complete more years of schooling, live in better neighborhoods, and marry higher status people than darker skinned people of the same race or ethnicity. Fascinating. These disparities exist across cultures, but the people that are impacted the most are those of African descent, as they often have a darker complexion and thus do not benefit from the privileges granted to white individuals or those that appear to be white. Existing literature highlights how the access to opportunities afforded to fairer-skinned individuals plays a large role in their life outcomes, as well as how they are viewed by others. Related to the impact of colorism on public perception, contemporary literature is heavily focused on the beauty industry, specifically in the advertisement and popularity of skin bleaching cosmetics across the globe. Folks, a multi-billion-dollar industry, the bleaching of your beautiful bronze skin. What a travesty. What a reverse osmosis of thought in your process. And right in Africa is where the skin lightening industry thrives. Where there are nothing but Black people, there are people that want to be white amongst them. And that is the psychology of white supremacy and how it has permeated so many populations, even those predominantly dark-skinned. One of the most important sources of contemporary literature related to the history of the skin lightening industry is Beneath the Surface, a transnational history of skin lighteners by Lynn M. Thomas. In her book, Thomas outlines the history of skin lightening from pre-colonial indigenous practices to the present-day cosmetics industry and the impact of racism and white supremacy in the growth of this practice. She also includes the role of capitalism in marketing the use of products such as bleaching creams to be happier or to obtain a better way of life. And look, folks, here's the deal, man. I mean, when you read this stuff, it's not comfortable. It's not common conversation between individuals because, you know, it puts some people off. It alienates some that associate themselves so closely with the topic at hand. But for goodness sake, you know, if you want to be a white person and you go to the extent of purchasing, you know, medications and chemicals that make your skin white, well, there's a problem. What was that dude, Jose, whatever his name? He's the brother from Cuba. He just went from a brother to all of his skin, face, everything. And what is that? How is that placed in the minds without affect? How is that placed in the minds of Negroes who look upon that and wonder how that effect has taken place? I think it's a pretty good article. And oh, look at this. Here we have Sweet Georgia Brown Bleaching Cream advertisement, which encourages women to use their product to be more beautiful and appealing to men. Look at that. Beauty cream treatment, skin bleach cream. It's a lemon cleansing cream. Look at that, folks. Wow. And it was probably directed right toward us and the capitalism involved. Much of the discourse surrounding colorism evaluates its impact on global beauty standards, most specifically for women. Since for many women, their value is placed on their beauty and desirability. Dark-skinned women are not viewed as beautiful and consequently are seen to be worth less than their lighter counterparts. In the contemporary world, beauty has a lot of influence on the outcomes of women. According to researchers, a woman who fits the white beauty standard is more likely to experience advantages in education, employment, and the marriage market. Additionally, countries such as the Philippines, Korea, Japan, China, Saudi Arabia, Uganda, Brazil, Mexico, Pakistan, Jamaica, India, Tanzania, Senegal, Nigeria, and Ghana are known to support beauty industries that encourage increased proximity to whiteness to be considered beautiful. Now, did you get that list? Did anybody I missed? That is something. These countries also actively encourage the use of westernized cosmetic procedures and skin bleaching cosmetic process. The popularity of skin lightening cosmetics is undeniable. However, there's a lack of research about the societal implications of these practices and the role they play in a larger white supremacist context. Well, the psychology of it is where most kind of lose their way. I'm considering all the mechanisms that go into the process, and how they've laid the foundation as it produces what it produces. They get a commercial, they convince you that lighter is better, that darker is lesser, the caste system. And they bombard the populace with this ideation. And in every respect, in media and movies, everywhere you look, being white is all right and being black is whack. And then they come up with the cosmetics required to accomplish that end. And then I just imagine a woman going out and, shopping for that, searching for that product, and then finding it and paying for it. And then, all the while, what's going through her mind? All the while, what's going through her mind? That she must be lighter to be better, to get more, to get ahead. And I got to tell you, folks, that ideation needs to just be dead. All right, let's continue. My apologies. Apologies about that. While there is a significant amount of literature about colorism and white supremacy independently, scholarship surrounding the connection between the two in the past 15 years has been minimal. One moment, got it. These countries also actively encourage the use of westernized cosmetic procedures and skin bleaching cosmetic products. The popularity of skin lightening cosmetics is undeniable. However, there is a lack of research about the societal implications of these practices. I just wanted to read that again. And the role they play in larger white supremacist context. Good. So again, while there is a significant amount of literature about colorism and white supremacy independently, scholarship surrounding the connection between the two in the past 15 years has been minimal. Despite this, the article, Skin Color and Colorism, Global Research, Concepts, and Measurements by Angela R. Dixon and Edward E. Tells, is one of the most cited reviews of the existing literature surrounding skin color in the United States and worldwide. Through their analysis of existing literature, they compare the connection between colorism and racism across the globe and suggest that color consciousness and white supremacy appear to be united, globalized, and commodified as exemplified by the multi-billion-dollar skin lightening industry. Now, did you hear that? So the multi-billion-dollar skin lightening industry validates the connection between colorism and white supremacy. Very interesting. Compared to racism, there's a lot less scholarship on colorism and its role in society. According to Hepzibah versus Stimick, Paul, Goland, and Gardner, in their article, Color, in Context, 3 angles on contemporary colorism, the lack of scholarship can be explained by 2 factors. Firstly, racism and strict racial classifications in societies often overshadow colorism. Secondly, due to its interracial nature, Discrimination on the basis of skin tone is a sensitive subject. Scholars differ in their explanations for literature and conversations surrounding colorism waning. Some look to the phenomena of colorblind racism and willful ignorance on the part of white Americans as they believe that racism is in the past and it does not need to be discussed. Others look to communities of color and their efforts to conceal their internal issues in an effort to not draw outside attention to their flaws. Others argue that the focus needs to be on racism instead of colorism, as it is a bigger, more pressing issue. Due to the influence and sinister nature of white supremacy not being fully understood in many conversations surrounding colorism, many people of color believe colorism is a shortcoming of their communities and something that needs to be combated internally. Despite this, the consensus among scholars is that racial discrimination is alive and well, causing division within and among communities of color as a result of the persistence and strength of white racism. How impactful. We can see how this colorism is addressed, it's recognized, and then almost shelved and put behind racism. But I believe people don't understand that colorism is that more subtle form of racism that accomplishes white society's white supremacists' ends. Very, very interesting. Listen, folks, I do this because I think there needs to be a conversation regarding why Negroes should leave. Most of what I read lately has been surrounding the issue of race and the whole the white terror that Negroes have been put through for 400 years, and it's not over. It's just continuing. It's going to take a different form. It's going to morph into these different, actions, activities, movements, people. I spoke this morning with Morel and told him there's no solution to this. There's no getting out of this, except that you get out of this. I'm making plans. I don't know about you. I have contacted people. I'm writing the Kenyan embassy in DC. I've told them my story. I tell them I want to leave. This is true. And the only reason I'm doing it is I don't want to be trapped within this country as it runs off the rails. And there's not enough consensus to stop it from its current trajectory. There's no stopping this. This is gonna cascade into disaster. And as I've said before in reference to the Holocaust, I will not be the Jew who stayed. So that's why I do this, because we got people writing thesis about current situations involving Negroes and how colorism and other factors regarding white supremacy have laid into this country to the point that they're ready to have a whites-only society if they're allowed. And I can't see enough strength or honest people to really sway the crowd. So I read this just as a warning to Negroes that maybe we should pay attention to what's going on and at least make some kind of exit strategy available just in case. Because I can tell you without doubt, this country and its entire existence is predicated on race. Okay, sorry about that. Let's continue. Hey, this is the connection between colorism and white supremacy. It's a thesis written by a brilliant student at Fordham University. And I think it's interesting. Her insight has a lot to offer. So let's see. While the existing literature largely discusses the benefits and privileges granted to individuals of a lighter complexion, they also discuss the interracial conflict. Specifically, the idea that having a darker complexion leads to one's racial identity being validated. In many communities, lighter-skinned individuals feel ostracized and feel the need to prove the authenticity of their racial background within their communities. Additionally, lighter-skinned individuals seem to be more closely aligned with whiteness, and consequently, their racial identity and allegiance are questioned. Scholars argue that dark skin is associated with more race conscious views, meaning that darker skinned individuals are perceived to be more aware of and passionate about racism and how it impacts their community. Despite the validity of the claim, lighter-skinned racial minorities can be seen as having the desire to be white and denying their ethnic roots. The existence of this conflict suggests that white supremacy is facilitated by communities of color, but that relationship has not been researched very much. While there is a lot of existing literature about white supremacy and its relation to racism, there's a gap in research about colorism and its connection to white supremacy, especially in the 21st century. I will research this relationship by looking into colorism in the United States and Puerto Rico. I chose the United States as an easy case study. The United States has a very clear and well-documented racial classification system and history. The bulk of existing literature about colorism focuses on the United States and its long history of racial discrimination up through the 20th century. Despite this, there is a lack of recent literature as many individuals believe that Americans live in a post-racial society and consequently do not believe combating colorism should be a primary concern. Puerto Rico is the most difficult case study since Puerto Rico is considered a colorblind society. However, it is useful since it has a color-based hierarchy instead of a race-based one. For this paper, the colorism being discussed is largely anti-Black and affects individuals of African descent across the case studies. This paper will focus on research from the past 15 years to argue that colorism in the modern age is a tool of white supremacy and plays a large role in the continued mistreatment and exploitation of Black bodies across the globe. All right, so what do we got? At the half hour, she ends her introduction. We see she's gonna go back 15 years. Look at that. And as we dive into this, folks, listen, we have to become critical thinkers. Negroes have to become critical thinkers. We have to take in information, mull it around in our minds until we come to a conclusion and find something we can land on that's you can call mine. You understand? Too much of the history that we believe has been spoon-fed lies. And the subtle nature in which they make their offense palpable is the most offending of the entire, I mean, listen, look, I mean, when you talk to the average individual about colorism, about white supremacy, about the history in this country, most want to relegate it to the past. They most want to say, well, that was 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. No. Those people had children. Can't you see them? Yeah, their children write manifestos, drive 200 miles and kill Black people while they shop on a Saturday. And if one of them has the temerity to do that, we're in trouble. There's no peace. There's no relaxation. Negroes aren't writing manifestos and killing white folks in mass order. And unless they get their shit together, which I just don't see it happening, I believe Negroes need to prepare to leave this goddamn country. So, that's the Doug Rice Show. I don't know what to tell you. If you don't believe, if you don't understand, if you can't perceive, just watch and see how it plays out here. Because here's the thing, folks, and I will say this again. Donald Trump and his 75 million supporters growing, they're not going anywhere. And let me clue you in on something. There are no blacks for Trump. None. No blacks for Trump. There are coons for Trump. There are step and fetch it individuals for Trump, but no, there are no blacks for Trump. No Negroes for Trump. Trump tore his ass with us in Central Park 5. Any thinking Negro that's still alive should know that. And so he's got a crowd of white rage he cannot wait to release on the population. And I'm gonna tell you something, folks. I don't throw the odds on the other guys. I think the other guys are gonna fucking fold like a piece of paper. I'm telling you this. When Donald Trump's boys, when them Proud Boys get released from jail, I'll say it again. If you think that clown is gonna do 22 years, you think that Cuban, dark-skinned Rico, whatever his name is, well, they can't wait to let them dudes out of jail. And if Negroes are still here after they're getting done killing one another, all they're gonna do is hunt us down, each one of us, to a brother. So that's fact. And I hope you Negroes are packed. Okay, let's get back to it. I'm sorry. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you're not, leave. But if you do enjoy it, do me a favor. Share, like, subscribe, hit the notification button, all that good stuff. There it is. And I appreciate, no matter how many people are here, I appreciate your being here. I do. Again, not the most popular topic, but what you gonna do? I don't know. I mean, I got to do something in the morning. Next! All right, here we go. Methodology and limitations of literature. By comparing and analyzing the presence and the impact of colorism across two different countries, representing two different regions of the world, this paper seeks to argue that white supremacy has a long history in a variety of communities that has been facilitated by colorism. The case study demonstrates how two vastly different cultures impacted by varying colonial powers experience and facilitate discrimination against their inhabitants of color, most notably those of African descent. Additionally, both have different historical events that have informed their color-based and racial discrimination practices. For example, American slavery and Jim Crow legislation have influenced color-based discrimination in the United States. In Puerto Rico, the caste system implemented by the Spanish colonizers, as well as the modern-day colorblind approach to race, has had a large influence on the experience of Puerto Ricans of varying skin tones. Now, I'm pretty sure that Cuba has the same kind of system, affected by the Spanish. So we can assume Puerto Rico and Cuba have experienced the same kind of colorism placed within their societies. B, method and organization of the paper. Throughout this paper, I will take a closer look at the connection between white supremacy and colorism through case study United States, South Africa, and Puerto Rico. These three case studies will provide insight into how white supremacy and colorism are manifested in societies with different views on race and racial classification systems across their histories and into the present day. Each case study will look at the colonial influence, history, demographics, racial classification systems, legislation, and presence of white supremacy in each respective country. In the following section, the connection between white supremacy and colorism will be analyzed by reviewing the findings from the case studies. Finally, the paper will conclude with a summary of the context of the paper and suggestions for future research. So she's laying a foundation. Now, one tends to wonder the grade that she got on this paper. I'm wondering, was there colorism involved in her grade? I'm wondering, did her professor accept what he read? And if he did, I wonder what he said. It's very interesting. These sensitive subjects, as you try to write about them, I can't imagine that the grade on this situation isn't affected by the very colorism that it expresses. I can't. In either respect, whether the professor is black, whether the professor is white. You know, we hold these opinions about these beings that we're around. Some of us love them. We just can't get enough. Others, we resent the fact that we give a damn about them in the first place. You know, and the fact of the matter is history connects, always. They'd rather we pay no attention to the history behind the curtain. But I think it's our job to snatch the curtain clear so we can see clearly what it is they're presenting. All right, folks, let me continue. C, limitations. The limitations of this thesis revolve around the lack of discourse surrounding colorism around the world. More specifically, the lack of discourse on colorism outside of the United States. Many countries with inhabitants of varying skin tones are impacted by colorism and actively practice it in a variety of fields, whether that be the job industry, extracurricular activities, medical practices, the beauty industry, marriage practices, or the justice system. Despite this, there's not much documented research in the 21st century in the Caribbean, Africa, or Asia. Surprisingly, the regions with the least amount of research on the modern day implications of colorism are areas that are predominantly people of color. This can be explained by the idea that racism and white supremacy are seen as inherently American issues, which is not true, and consequently is another limitation of the present study. Additionally, many individuals believe we are in a post-racial society, thus implying that they believe discrimination based on phenotype is a thing of the past. In most literature surrounding white supremacy, acts of racism are viewed as the clearest manifestation of white supremacist ideals. Additionally, colorism, as is often an issue within communities of color, is not heavily researched, discussed, or prioritized. Now, I'm gonna land there. I gotta use my voice later. I think this is a good review. I'm gonna land it there and leave it there. And I'm gonna tell you, this is interesting. There are more pages. I think she's gonna go into some depth, and I don't think we need to spend more time on this. Listen, folks, where are you? Negroes, where are you? Now, after you've answered that question, just ask one more question. How did you get here? For those of you that are amongst these United Snakes hissing themselves into oblivion, I think the critical issue is how Negroes arrived on these shores. And so, the fact that I believe we got here by boat, simply because something the Bible wrote, that indicates something. The fact that we were shipped in like chattel. Oh, I'm sorry, we were. never ever welcome as full-fledged citizens of this white nationalist country. And so I do this, I read this to get your attention to that fact. It's not past prologue, it's here. It's in front of our faces, and it's growing stronger in the likes of folks like Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Jesus. Who else could I mean? I mean, come on, folks. So I do appreciate you tuning in today. We're gonna switch gears next week. We'll get into a less touchy subject. I know you guys, your ears are just burning out there. But I do appreciate your consideration. And again, for God's sake, please check out our sponsor, twitwear.com. 10%. Hey, it's good stuff. All right, folks, I got to go. You hear my voice is getting a little rough. I got to go. I appreciate you tuning in to the Doug Rice Show. Tell your friends it's Friday. I know you don't want to necessarily be, saying too much, but okay. Hey, what can you do? All right, have a good day. I'll see you. Wait, hold on. 1 second. I got to do it naturally. It's Friday. It's Friday, and this is the pressure day, This is you trying to make it across the finish line without, tearing into somebody. I feel your pain. But I've got to at least let you go with my usual saying. You got to be out in public places. I get it, but do me a favor. Get that goddamn grin off your faces. Now you can go. Have a good Friday and see you on Sunday's show. Noon.